The relationship between Afghanistan and Pakistan is being marred by distrust. What is the history of this distrust? What are the various causes right now? And how we can stem the rot? These are some of the aspects which will be examined by two very eminent panelists who need no introduction, but first things first. We have with us Ambassador Ayaz Wazir, who among other capitals of the world has served in Kabul with a great fanfare. And fanfare is within inverted commas. So I'm sure he will share some of his experience, and in light of that he will guide us about how to stem the rot. We have with us Jan Achakzai, who again is, among other things, an expert on Balochistan. Welcome to the show, sir. Let's start the discussion with you, Ambassador. In your opinion, what is the history of this mistrust? Because it dates way back.
Well, then we have to dig out the old history. We have to go back to the creation of Pakistan. I think it started from there when we went to the UN to become its member. Afghanistan didn't recognize us straight away like the other countries did.
In fact, Afghanistan, I think, was the only country which opposed our membership to the United Nations.
Well, what I heard from a very authentic source in Afghanistan was they didn't vote negatively, but they didn't participate. The representative over there absented himself from the voting process.
Okay.
So obviously there to us is a negative vote, because one would expect close neighbors and a neighbor like Afghanistan to vote for you, that yes, you become a member. But for that they have their own explanation. So from there onward, the trust deficit started, I would say. That was the day one. Then it increased on, if you go into the following history thereafter. Then the Pashtunistan stunt came in. Then the accusation on each other, interference from both the sides. And then the Soviet invasion, again the American invasion, and the role played, the Taliban coming in, the support Pakistan extended to the Taliban, the division within Afghanistan. In fact, if we look into the true sense, after the initial shock of trust deficit between us, the remaining is a division within the Afghan population. Like started from the Taliban uprising. Some were pro, some were against. There was a government in Afghanistan, Taliban were against it. Taliban took over, there was a pocket resisting them. So there was a division continuing. The American came in, again the government was installed, but Taliban resisted. So the Afghan itself continued in this divisional process politically, and in a fight also between them. And if we had to support one, the other would naturally be annoyed, like the Iranian or the Indians or Russian, they supported the Northern Alliance, and those who were following the Afghan, I'm talking, the Taliban, they were not happy with those countries. And those who were supporting in Afghanistan the Northern Alliance, they were not happy with us. And today, let me finish by that, today's government in Afghanistan is either of those people who were then members of the Northern Alliance or sympathetic towards that. Very few would be outside of that, like Ashraf Ghani and a couple of others. So the majority is that. Now, in today's Afghanistan, is a famous saying in Pashto goes that if the tea is spilled somewhere by a wife or a husband, the accusation is that Pakistan has done it.
Okay, this is an aspect which we'll come to a little later, why Pakistan becomes the scapegoat. But continuing with the history, Jan Achakzai, since you're an eminent reader also, would you care also to touch upon the aspect of the Durand line, because that has caused some ripples in the relationship?
Well, Durand line is very interesting, particularly for Afghan politicians. They have made the opinion of Afghan people as if it's an international issue, as if it's unresolved, and that's why they cannot touch it. Even in my interactions with the Afghan leadership in the past, the recent past and also in extent past, they had this problem that is a political issue, and they cannot simply prepare the public opinion on on what they believe resolving this issue. But important thing is that now there are two schools of thoughts mainly in Afghanistan. One, of course, belong to the ethnic Pashtuns. The other belong to some of the non-ethnic Pashtuns. Particularly the non-Pashtun, the non-Pashtun ethnic groups believe that Pakistan might have a problem with Afghanistan because of the Durand issue, though which is not the case. They believe that the myth of Pakistan's interference is there because the Durand issue is not resolved between the two countries. On the other hand, the Pashtuns who happen to be Afghan nationalists or Pashtun nationalists really believe that it's an issue and that it needs to be resolved, but they have no economic, geographical, and military might that they can dictate the terms to Pakistan. So it's the matter for the future generation to resolve. That is the narrative that they are kind of sharing with their rank and file and the political constituencies and the civil society in Afghanistan. But for Pakistan, it is a resolved issue. It's international law that whoever inherit the international, the covenants of the empire, that status is very clear. Pakistan inherited that legacy. Whoever inherited the British Empire became, kind of took over all the responsibilities and obligations according to that international law. So for Pakistan, it's an international border, and also the United States of America and the international community recognize is so. But it's a political issue in Afghanistan, and it would remain that. So I believe that the politicians in Afghanistan will try to keep it as alive as they can, and they would also try to use it as a leverage on their fellow politicians, sometime to point score, and sometime also to put pressure on the pro-Pakistani camps in Afghanistan.
And if you recall, sir, another myth that has been created that Sir Mortimer Durand and the Afghan king, they signed it in 1894, and this duration of it was supposed to be for 100 years, and in 1994 the Durand Treaty has expired, so as such it ceases to exist, which is not a fact. I think you have studied it, so have you, Ambassador, and we have failed to find any reference to a 100-year period. Am I right?
Yeah, absolutely. It's not there. I mean, there are so many vague interpretation of the original contract, and this is why history sometimes is very much a blotted interpretation of the myths and assumptions, and this Durand contract is also one of that. I myself studied it. Even the right of easement of the tribal people across the borders on Durand line is also a controversial issue. The wordings are different there. So there will a lot of divergences as to what actually was agreed upon. And then of course Pakistan is not a British empire, and we have moved on. Pakistan came out of British India after the partition. So all international obligations and interpretations of the legal treaties before the Pakistani's partition were different, and they stand differently different today.
Point taken. But Ambassador, one of the irritants which appeared yesterday was the arrest of this Afghan intelligence officer, and again from Chaman, the same place from where that Indian raw terrorist Commander Yadav was arrested.
Yeah.
So what is your opinion of that?
Well, I would say he was the most stupid man, if one believes in what the newspaper said, that he was keeping so much ammunition and guns around him.
And ball bearings and...
If he was a true spy, he shouldn't have anything of that sort with him, or the other Indian one carrying a passport. Where on earth has one heard of a spy carrying identity on him, and this fellow carrying so much arms and ammunition? But obviously, if there is one, it's a newspaper's report, government has not said anything about it, but if one goes by it, it is unfortunate. But the border is so porous. People can come and go easily. It is, I would say, for our security agencies to keep a very close eye on the border. It is not properly monitored on both sides, Afghanistan and our side, a bit free access easily, except for the 2 points which are monitored, Chaman and Torkham. The other two at Angurada and Ghulam Khan, which is Ghulam Khan, I believe, has just started. Angurada should be starting soon. but there is no monitoring. Other than that, there are more than 262 unfrequented ways into Afghanistan or from Afghanistan to us. Who is going to control that? So the coming in or going in, if you look at from the Afghani angle also, they accuse you of doing it, we accuse them of doing it. Now, today we have said we have caught one. Now, if that be true, obviously, it's a big thing. It should be taken up with the Afghan government that, look, we promised, I believe both the governments have promised not to bring such issues into the public, but handle it on the quiet between them to bring the two governments closer a bit or remove the trust deficit between them. So in that case, this issue should be raised at the highest level. Military to military contact, intelligence to intelligence contact is there, and the so-called MOU that the two agencies have signed, now that should be really put it into test. That here we were supposed to share intelligence with each other for the benefit of each other, but here if we are doing something like this, obviously it's in nobody's interest. That is rather denting the trust deficit further, or the path that we both were marching on towards restoring peace in Afghanistan. So this is unfortunate if it is true, because as I said, it is only a newspaper report up till now, not yet said by the government in a categoric term.
But comments have come from some officials, especially from the FC head and also the Ministry of Interior of Balochistan.
But until ISPR or the Foreign Office, particularly until the Foreign Office says it in international relations, you know it.
I understand.
Till then, one has to be a bit careful.
But anyway, how do you look at this development, Jan Achakzai?
I think Balochistan is at the hub of the regional rival agencies' proxy war. Balochistan has, as was mentioned by Honorable Ambassador, has a porous border with Afghanistan, has a porous border with Iran, and it has a long, strip of a strip which you have a kind of water borders with the 7 or 6 Arabian countries. So it's easy to get into Pakistan. Unfortunately, in Balochistan, and Balochistan is becoming a strategic province in many ways, and also it's going to be a transportation hub of Pakistan, China when the corridor comes into play. And now we have a piece of Beijing coming up in Gwadar in terms of its industrial zone that has been launched yesterday. So there is a huge interest by the regional agencies, including the Afghan intelligence network, and then they believe that because the ethnic ties and the terms, there is a huge number of Baloch rebels also, that these tribesmen has gone into Afghanistan just next to Chaman border. They also open up for recruitment and training, and Afghan intel with unison with the Indian agencies, they are there operating. It's an open secret. And then just across the border, there are more than 10 projects. They are being run by the Indians, including their undercover spies. And just Commander Yadav's arrest has shown that they are so organized and have established links with elements in Balochistan and in Karachi. So Afghan intelligence is very much into this game now, and Balochistan is vulnerable because it constitutes 44% of the geography of Pakistan, and the law and order has recently improved dramatically. But till 2009, we had a huge issue in terms of sectarianism, militancy, insurgency, and this international terrorism. Now things are quite dramatic and improving, and the arrest of Afghan intelligence and also the Indian spies shows that our security operators are very much vigilant, and they are active to sabotage any network, because Gwadar has to come up, and we would see this increased coordination of these regional agencies who have got some sort of anti-Balochistan or anti-Gwadar convergence now from Israeli Mossad to CIA to other regional, even the Gulf countries. And, this is what they are paid for. Otherwise, they are not coming to Balochistan for the picnic, I mean.
Point taken. But, Ambassador, let's talk about the peace process in Afghanistan. Pakistan has bent backwards to try and cobble some kind of an arrangement with the Taliban to bring them to the peace table. But the other side, like the acting NDS chief the other day, he made a comment that Pakistan is urging the Taliban to fight more, which I think is contrary to the truth. What are your thoughts?
Well, I would say it's unfortunate on the part of the Afghans particularly. Look, the problem is that of the Afghans. It is Afghanistan that is burning. They should have been really on one page as for return of peace is concerned.
Excuse me.
Whether that individual is pro-Ashraf Ghani or that is pro-Mullah Mansour. Peace should have been the main focus. But what I have recently seen in Afghanistan, going there 3-4 times, interacting with civil society and senior government functionaries, I found two divergent opinions, even within the government. One is a bit, I would say, like, okay, pro-peace process. And the other is so adamant in his opinion of killing everybody, no talk to them. Now, how, until you bring these within the same circle together, how are you going to proceed further? Leave the Taliban for a while. We will come back to it. But this group, which is in control in Afghanistan, or say the Afghan government,
Or the so-called unity government.
Exactly. The unity government is not exactly on one page. As I described, it is divided. When that is divided, now take the case of the Taliban. If they could fight against the might on earth for so long, that might has gone. Now it's a very limited force sitting over there, and that the division is known to them. They are Afghans. They know in and out of the government, like the government knows in and out of the Taliban. They know each other's psyche very well. The Taliban are now in a position of making their march, imposing their condition. If I would qualify my statement by this, that the Afghans today would not accept Taliban as they were before, to have a government completely to themselves. It should be a mixture of both. But how do you do that when you have no unity in the unity government? And when the Taliban are in a position or weighing their option, knowing it that the other side is getting weaker and weaker. In this situation, Pakistan said it loud and clear that we have a little influence. Our advisor on foreign affairs made that famous statement that yes, they are within us and we have a limited influence, and we will exercise definitely to bring them to the table, but we cannot twist their hands to make them agree on whatever condition you have, that you have to sort out yourselves. But for that to materialize, the day the Taliban know that the unity government is in the true sense unity, I am positive they will come and talk to them, but they have seen this void between the unity government. It's widening and widening, and that is, in my assessment, very dangerous, because today the Taliban are getting stronger. It was in today's paper, I'm sure you have read, Mullah Omar's elder son has accepted Mullah Mansour, given a position, and his brother also, Mullah Omar's brother. Both these had opposed Mullah Mansour before. Now they have finally given up and accepted Mullah Mansour as a leader. So Mullah Mansour is emerging really strong, and he would not talk to them despite Pakistan's influence over them until the unity government is really united and one voice for making a deal with them.
Indeed, you have made your point loud and clear. So, Achakzai, the gist of what the ambassador just said, that the fissures within the Taliban are being, bridged, and with Mullah Omar's son and brother accepting these positions and also accepting the sovereignty of Mullah Mansour, I think the Taliban are appearing to be now on one page. So do you think it as a movement forward, or would you rather say that the fissures between the unity government are detrimental to the peace process?
I think united Taliban and also gaining on the battlefield, the renewed confidence is a setback for the peace and reconciliation efforts, and it's a problem for everybody, including Pakistan. Now, Pakistan was blamed for supporting the Taliban, but it's a myth. We know that Pakistan has this much influence on the Taliban. When Taliban are now have this success in the battlefield after Kunduz and then some successes in Helmand, they have got new sponsors now like Russia and Iran. Their anti-Daesh convergence in Afghanistan made them realize that they need to support the Taliban. That's why reportedly the Russians have provided them with money and ammunition. The same is the case with Iran. So they have got now a strategic depth within Afghanistan because the Taliban, the TTP remnants are there. There is sovereign wides there, so they can easily use that wides are the lake of government writ in areas of south and southwest and southeast. That is also a dangerous situation for the government of Afghanistan. Now, if they have more sponsors, more money, and also the strategic depth where they can have some sort of sanctuaries, it is a problem because that means we have no influence on the Taliban. The other states would also have no influence, and they would be having more confidence, and with more confidence they would not be agreeing to any sort of negotiations. Though even the negotiations, we are not sure is there any chance, because 90% of talks are prone to failure when the A party believes that they are gaining momentum, when they are winning, and the other side is losing. So unless we have a balance of expectations, there was less expectation from the talk, from the reconciliation even process. So this is why I think coming of Russia and their differences and divergences with the United States of America on Syria also not helping on Afghan scene as well. They don't want to help the Quadrilateral Forum because they believe that they have got nothing to do with the U.S. perception and efforts of managing geopolitical affairs in Afghanistan, just like they are not cooperating with the U.S. on Syria, and also, of course, their divergences on Ukraine as well. So I think this is not good for for us, for Afghanistan. If we had this feeling that the Taliban are losing tactically and strategically, there were higher chances. Now, if we believe, say that we accept the Afghan government's assertion that we have to go after in a coercive way against what they believe the irreconcilable Taliban. I mean, did we get rid of the TTP in Afghanistan? I'm talking about the TTP. No, they are there, and that is why only they need to throw a tactical stone and create a strategic stir in Pakistan, and we have seen that recently in KPK and in Lahore as well. Now, having said that, if we treat the TTA or the Afghan Taliban as the TTP from tomorrow, would that bring any good to the this landscape of the militancy? Of course not. So now it's a question for the Afghan government to realize that simply Pakistan, even by treating them as enemy within Pakistan or outside Pakistan, there is no way they can be forced to come to the table and speak to them. So it's for them to realize and how far they are willing to negotiate and compromise.
Point taken, but Ambassador, he mentioned the quadrilateral group meeting on this, and apart from the one outing 7th of July last year, the Taliban have not joined the quadrilateral group for talks. So what future do you see of the quadrilateral group being influential in achieving peace in Afghanistan?
Well, I had my serious doubts right from day one of the quadrilateral. In the tribal society, and Afghanistan is a tribal society, things work differently, not like what we are used to in the modern way of diplomacy. Over there, it's not the UN that decides, or diplomacy of the UN type in an air-conditioned room sitting across the table and you decide. They have a different approach. If the quadrilateral member in the quadrilateral committee, if they knew or if they were aware of the Afghan psyche, someone would have seriously suggested that let's not go public about it. Let's on the quiet nominate a person or 2-3 persons, a group. Let that negotiate between the two sides. On the quiet, not giving a hint to anyone of the media. On the quiet, they should have conducted what the Afghan government says, the unity government, then would go to the Taliban, what they say. When you make an assessment of their claim, reclaim, proposal, suggestion, all that weigh together and then see, is there a room in it to bring them to the table? Or you just want a show, a television show, that we have the people and there is nothing being discussed earlier. So they should have done that exercise and made a little broader agreement between the two for peace. Then they should have gone public about it and invited the two. Some progress could have been made. But nobody knew, even from Murray 1 on the first meeting, as to what would be their condition. If you do not know your conditions of my fight, God forbid, with you, then what are you going to discuss with me on the table? I should know your condition, you should know my condition, and we have to make a compromise on those conditions. And when some way is made, then the two of us should be brought together to sign it and accept it. But that exercise was not done. What in that, the hidden point I take was inclusion of China and America, was like reassurance to the Afghans by proposing it to themselves that if these two countries are sitting, then the border would be monitored, then movement would be monitored, then control would be exerted and people would be stopped. That has a different angle. That you cannot do. For that we have to be bilateral, Afghan and Pakistan. We have to accept the word of each other. If you give me your word, that is what in the Pathan way of life is acceptable. No agreement, give me your word of honor, it is done. I give you my word of honor, it is done. I will not dishonor it, you will not dishonor it. So that should be bilateral, that we would not cross each other border for anti-state activities. And then the two should have been brought to the table. But no homework was done, I would put it simple as that.
I tend to agree with you there. But you see, Jan Achakzai, we noticed that there are preconditions from the Afghan government and there are preconditions from the Taliban also. So unless these preconditions are either dropped or resolved, I don't think there is a way forward. But I would really solicit your opinion on this.
Well, I mean, preconditions are just part of posturing. I don't think any party, either of the parties, mean that without these preconditions they are not going to talk. But when the two parties want to talk, there should be a balance of calculus. At the moment, the Taliban are very much looking to this spring. They believe that they are gaining momentum on the battlefield. Their tactical successes means that they would, kind of bargain in the negotiating table. However, now it's for the opposite camp that needs to send a message that their tactical successes are somehow quashed if the spring comes, that the United States of America provide as a real cover as it did it in other instances, but not the fiasco of Kunduz, and so that they don't take over population centers. The third important thing is that what is worrisome and complicating the whole scene is more players like Iran and Russia coming into the rescue of the Afghan Taliban. Now they would be calculating that, so what if we go our relations south with Pakistan and other regional players like Saudis, so we have got other players to support us. That is also complicated the situation. Unless we the Quadrilateral Forum acknowledge the role of Iran somehow on the table, because it has openly said that we need to have a seat on the table to be part of these negotiations, and they have got a legitimate security interest in Afghanistan as well, and political, of course, and also somehow some sort of convergence with the Russians and Afghanistan. If you remember, post 9/11, the Russians were cooperating in Afghanistan, the Iranians were cooperating in Afghanistan, but now if we cut them out, it's not going to help it, and there is a regional kind of effort that is needed. Okay, Indians don't have a direct role to play in Afghanistan, but the supporting role should be coming also from Iran and Russia. Here we need to engage them as well. But at the tactical level, we need to make sure, this international regional forum need to make sure at least in the next offensive, the Taliban don't see tactical successes. If that happens, their position will be, hardened. The hawks among them would simply, eat off, the doves among the Taliban, and then, the blame would come to Pakistan, though we are not controlling it. And yesterday,
and this is exactly what the NDS chief said.
Here you go. And the even foreign minister, the Deputy Foreign Minister, Mr. Achakzai, blaming Pakistan that we are waiting for Pakistan to deliver. I mean, that is ridiculous. I mean, expecting from Pakistan a peaceful Afghanistan when it is a country that have more than 6 neighbors, when it has neighbors who have got a competing agendas, when within the national unity government there are competing players, and in opposition they have got different agendas. And of course, the Afghan government, whether it's prepared to have a meaningful negotiations with the Taliban at all. So all these problems simply washing hands on the Pakistan's door is simply doing too far. This is why we need to be very honest in our assessment of Afghanistan. So I fear for worse in the coming months, which is not good for the region, which is not good for United States of America, which is not good for China. China really want to have a different approach to Afghanistan and try to be more engaging. Now recently they have proposed some sort of security, new security mechanism, including Pakistan, and also Tajikistan from Central Asia. But to what extent Moscow would agree to that mechanism bypassing Shanghai forum on security of Afghanistan is a matter of debate, and in coming months we will look at it very minutely. But important thing is that the next spring is just around the corner. The Taliban's myths that they are getting success and they think that they would have population centers within their grasp need to be busted. Otherwise there is unlikely any progress on the table.
Right. So, Ambassador, you mentioned in your opening comments about you made a anecdote about tea being spilled. So the point comes to, is Pakistan being made a scapegoat for anything which goes wrong in Afghanistan? Now let me draw your attention to this recent development that we invited the cricket team to come and play here. And the Afghans had the temerity to say that the security situation in Pakistan is bad. If the security situation is bad, how are 3 million Afghan refugees seeking refuge in Pakistan? Is it insecure for them? Would you care to talk about that?
Well, that is unfortunate coming from a country where he should have said, in fact, the other way around. If they had to invite a Pakistani team, that should have been. Anyway, that's another issue. But the problem is, as I said in my first statement, I think, or in the following, that the problem lies with the unity government there, in my assessment. They are not on the same page. I will not go into the detail, but I have said it, I am repeating the same word. When that happens, the rest would follow. The blame game comes to us for 2 reasons. One is the entity which was anti-Taliban had come into power, and you were then supporting the Taliban. You had recognized Taliban, helping them, you were standing with them. So that entity automatically went against you from day one. And then that entity or that government was supported by all those people who were supporting them during their fight against the Taliban with full force. The Indians are sitting with full force everywhere. The Iranian brothers, they are very, very good neighbor brothers to us, but in Afghanistan, we have a clash of interest.
True.
So there, they are deeply involved. In other words, Afghanistan minus Pakistan was a free ground for everybody to kick Pakistan left and right and put every blame on them. So that's why it has come down to that level almost, that even husband and wife accuse each other of Pakistan's interference. Maybe Pakistan, poor thing, has not done it. I wish we were so capable to do everything in another country that we want to, but that is humanly not possible, neither in our interest.
Right.
If anybody is under that, living under that mistake, that destabilizing Afghanistan is in our interest. I think he is living in a fool's paradise. Peaceful Afghanistan is in our interest. Now, that is a question, how do you look at that? How do you bring peace to Afghanistan?
I'll come to this in a little while. Let me ask your opinion, Jan Achakzai. Is Pakistan being made a scapegoat for everything that goes wrong in Afghanistan?
Absolutely. I think Pakistan should be given credit for it has you know, a 190 degrees change in its foreign policy vis-a-vis Afghanistan. Pakistan initiated the fact, you know, to have a security relation with Afghanistan. That's for the first time we have seen in our recent history. The first time we have a peoples-to-people contact. The first time we have a government-to-government, you know, a very good contacts. And also for the first time we have political contacts at different political level. Now you can see that the Pakistan, you know, Afghans coming into Pakistan in thousands every day. And the visa is just like working day and night in Kabul. This is what Pakistan has been doing and is doing. Now, with Afghan Taliban, Pakistan genuinely want to see peace in Afghanistan because we have got a big strategic, you know, problem with our western border. You know, if there is no state writ, you know, the outlaws, the militants, and other groups like Daesh could become a lenient threat and imminent threat to Pakistan's security. And the last thing, we need to have a headache across the border. We cannot go there and we cannot do anything against them. So what they do, you know, they remain a tactical force and they come easily sneak into the border and do something to us, and we simply you know, we have now saying something that is unpreventable attacks because of our insecure western flank, and that is thanks to Afghanistan's security situation. So I think Pakistan would be mad to be not wanting any peace in Afghanistan and any state writ, and we know that in Pakistan really don't want the Taliban taking over population centers or restoring any you know, pre 9/11 Afghanistan under the Taliban. Really, Pakistan has been trying to have an inclusive government as wish for, you know, having a representation of all ethnic groups regardless of their background, because peaceful Afghanistan is not possible without inclusive you know, polity, and that has, you know, Pakistan's genuine desire. And I'm shocked that when they blame Pakistan and then they expect from Pakistan to bring the peace to Afghanistan. So it's not, you know, a country cannot do it when the people of that particular country do not want to see, you know, how they would move forward. I mean, we can facilitate, we can, you know, withdraw some facilities to Afghans coming into. If they are hostile, we can arrest them, but that's it. Now it's for the Afghans to decide at the end of the day whether they want to see, I mean, who are these Taliban? Actually, they are Afghans. Now, if they are Afghans, now for them it's to resolve. And unfortunately, as the Ambassador Saab mentioned, the narrative coming from the different groups in Afghanistan is simply not helpful. I mean, they have not eliminated these groups. Even we had a 2009 surge of the United States of America. At one point, more than 300,000 troops were in Afghanistan. They could not tactically defeat them. Today, the United States of America has, you know, this position that there is no military solution to Afghanistan. Even if they remain there, they simply cannot kill every Afghan, every Talib. And now they are just waiting that the Afghan Taliban have one option, and that is reconciliation. So all, you know, the calculations are very much obvious, and you don't need a rocket science to work this out. Okay, we can have argument and debate as to how we go forward and what could be the benchmarks.
To go forward, if you hold the thought, I'll just come to you, because this is the final point. Let us talk about how do we stem the rot of trust deficit.
Well, I think we can do it easily, but for that, as they say, it all depends on your intention on both sides.
You see, as he mentioned, and you as the foreign policy expert would know, that Pakistan has had a flawed Afghan policy in the past.
Certainly.
But we have made course corrections and we have realized our mistakes, and we are willing to give the benefit of the doubt to the Afghans and move forward accepting our mistakes.
Look, it's a problem of how many years? 68 years almost now after Pakistan's creation. A deficit of that long a period cannot be just adjusted in one sitting or in one go or in one day. It will take time, but the first step, as they say, always is difficult, but once you take, the rest then follows for everything, and that applies on correcting your relation with other country. If the two governments, on which I have no doubt, to have no intention of improvement, because Ashraf Ghani came himself here, your Prime Minister and Army Chief, they went there, assured each other of making a positive move. Now, on that, I think the first step on our side, the positive step would be, which is also one of the point of the National Action Plan, and that is mainstreaming of FATA, which is on the border with it. And they have always a main problem from FATA to be used against Afghanistan. If you give a local government to the people, that is the only place where they have no government of themselves. Rest in every province, provincial government is there. FATA has no government of themselves. Other people are ruling them. So let the people be empowered. Let the people ensure that their area will not be used. That will be the first biggest signal to Afghanistan that now we really mean business.
I think it's a very solid point. Since I'm coming to the end of the program, so you have a minute to wind up, talk about the way forward.
First, the idealism. The two visionary leaders from both countries need to pick up a cue from Germany and French relations. When they had a Second World War, and they started from two things. First, they allowed the historians of both countries to write a common history so that the students can reread the history of both countries. And the second was youth exchanges. So here we need to start again, because we need a new history that we share with both countries, and our students need to read it so that we are not on the different planet. Because what narrative we had is about our history is flawed. We need a common history of both countries. Second, at diplomatic level, we really need to engage other countries like Iran and Russia as well, apart from the Quad's attempt. The third important thing is that there is no bullet solution. It has a long drawn process. It tests our will and patience, but we continue to engage. We continue to engage with all the parties to the dispute, whether it's Afghans themselves or the regional powers in the region, or international forces. That's the only way out. There is no bullet solution for that.
Viewers, with that we conclude this discussion, and both our participants have come up with very cogent suggestions. First of all, they summarized the history of the trust deficit. They examined it. They also talked about the irritants, but more importantly, they talked about the possible solutions. And the solution lies not just with Pakistan, but also with Afghanistan. We know that we are destined to suffer each other as neighbors. You can't wish away your neighbors. You can make new friends, you can dump old friendship, but you cannot change your neighbors. So if we have to live each other, we have to accept each other with our warts, with our ugliness, with our beauties, and try and develop it into a relationship which will be fruitful, which will bring in the peace process which has been evading us for over 3 decades, because the future is very important, where our true potential is being denied to us because of the situation in Afghanistan. Unless Pakistan and Afghanistan sink their differences, remove the trust deficit, and move forward on a path of peace, we will be doomed to suffer a fate of more turmoil and more chaos and mayhem. Let it not happen. I'd like to thank you, Ambassador Ayaz Wazir. It was a pleasure listening to you. I'd like to thank you, Jan Achakzai. As usual, you've been very eloquent. Viewers, keep watching us. Hope to see you in the next program, inshallah. Allah Hafiz.